My name is Jamie Daudon. This is
Guy Thayer.
We're here to present to you about our Methow Conservancy stewardship project that we did during the summer of 2013. We were both interns for the Methow Conservancy, and we were brought in order to put together a proposal for a youth stewardship committee, mainly focused on doing work on the land, the Conservancy easements, and to see the feasibility of that program and what that might look like. And
So we began with the idea really based around stewardship work, so especially on pretty much mainly on Conservancy land, and finding a group of young people who would engage with easement owners and even the Conservancy's own easements to do some of the basic stewardship work that needed to get done. But as we started working on this project, we kind of discovered that had been tried. Scott Perriman had actually brought that idea to the Valley this summer in 2013, but it had been unsuccessful because he could not get a single person to be on his work crew. So that was kind of our first obstacle. So after we started kind of engaging with the community and as well as Liberty High School, where we expected a lot of the actual kids and young adults who would be working on this project would come from, we came up with a little bit more of an adapted and kind of more engaged project, the Conservation Corps. And so we based it around 4 pillars. The first one was stewardship service, kind of self-explanatory. The second one is youth engagement, then community participation, which is meaning engaging with a lot of the different organizations in the Valley and finding ways to kind of form partnerships there and give these young people a really worthwhile education. And then that goes in with the cross-discipline interaction. So finding different ways to engage and teach and inspire. So yeah, so it's mutually beneficial.
So one of the first questions we had to answer was whether the Methow Conservancy was the right organization for this program in the Valley. And we ultimately decided that it was primarily for these 3 reasons, or why this fit. The 3-legged stool, which is the Methow Conservancy's focus on land protection, stewardship, and education. And we thought this program obviously fit within all 3 of these categories and the targets of the Methow Conservancy, and that it aligned very well with the mission, vision, and values of the Conservancy.
So if we look at the next slide, we'll see in the mission statement words like inspire people to care for, encourages private voluntary participation in land conservation. We think a lot of these come together with education, and particularly educating young people. And so this is really, we feel, well within the mission statement and a great opportunity to live out this statement.
And then in terms of its fit within the Valley, we see the Methow Conservancy in a unique position due to its already given resources. It has a lot of connections. Given the nature of its work, it has to work with a lot of organizations in the Valley. So it already has existing relationships to build upon.
And then respect, when we talked with these different organizations and the different work that's being done in the Valley, pretty much everyone has a lot of respect, kind of sees a purity in the work that the Conservancy is doing. And we think that kind of respect is really important to making this program vibrant. So, and then finally, environmental focus.
An obvious one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be done with educating young people about these issues and about, like, I guess, the connotations of these issues. And the environmental focus that the Methow Conservancy would provide would really give this a good direction. So.
All right, so we thought now we had to sort of address why this was a useful thing for the Conservancy now. And one of the most important factors in this is that the Conservancy is going through this community needs assessment, which means they're going to be sort of assessing what role they can provide in the community in the next 5 or 10 years, given their successfulness in putting easements on the properties. And we think that this sort of shifting role into becoming a facilitator within the Valley around sort of environmental issues and bringing this to the core of like young people's education to be an important part of that, and a good opportunity for it to shift that focus in a feasible way. And that we think that there's really demand from talking to the kids and the organizations that we've been working with, as well as looking at the needs of the land. We think that all 3 of these factors really, like, this is a place where there can be work done, and it will benefit both the land, the organizations, and the kids.
And obviously the land can't let us know it needs help, but a lot of the organizations
We talk to the land.
yeah, it's beautiful. A lot of the organizations we talk to, they want to be doing outreach. It's even part of their mission statements. But in terms of organizing an actual group and getting people together to do this outreach, that's a problem, and that's kind of too much energy per influence that they would be able to have. So consolidating these kids and bringing together a group that's willing to do different outreach projects is like perfect for these organizations and really exciting to them. So, and finally, why cross-discipline? Why not just a stewardship program, as we kind of mentioned at the start? First of all, a competitive program is really beneficial here because it's going to bring on more committed, more inspired kids to be working, and that's going to be really important for the stewardship side and also for just making this kind of a really strong program. And so we see like the educational opportunities associated with making this really interdisciplinary and working with a lot of different organizations to be like fantastic. Like this valley is really rich in terms of all the different projects and the kind of the energy that's here, and we think that getting the young people engaged in those is really important.
Yep, and then kind of going along with that is community engagement, exposing the kids to the various organizations in the valley and seeing what they can do, and what environmental work is being done in the valley. And then finally, the more interdisciplinary you are, the more funding sources you have, because you can pull from environmental groups or education groups.
Yeah.
So this is beneficial for achieving funding quickly and effectively.
Particularly education-wise, there's a lot of
Yeah.
money in environmental education now. And as long as this can be like really considered an educational project, there's a lot of funding available.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to get to the part of our presentation where we talk about the actual program we've made, starting with labor.
So we think Liberty Bell High School is going to be an important partner. A lot of bringing kids in from other places or not having a consistent place to draw employment from is going to cost a lot of resources and be kind of a hassle. I think as the program develops, could have a possibility there. But the kids at the school are looking for internship opportunities for their college applications and also just to have kind of some work experience. They also are really interested in joining the Forest Service when they turn 18, and so this is a really good experience that might make them more attractive to making it on that work crew. And then through Liberty Bell, both their senior projects and the science teachers at the school have offered to place kids into this program, so there's a lot of ways to get kids involved.
Mm-hmm. We decided for the first couple of years it makes the most sense to have 4 to 8 kids, junior, senior of high school, and then 6 hours a day because you don't want to work them too hard, but it's a good balance. And so we also consider a lot about liability and payment, what that might look like. We thought that a good idea would be to partner with Park Service SCA or WCC. Those last two are stewardship organizations. And if they handle the payroll, then it's a lot less work for the Conservancy, and they also have existing liability coverage, which might help there. We thought a stipend made the most sense because it lowers the LNI, which is an insurance issue. If you pay people at the very end, it's better for that, and then also focuses the program because you just get your money at the end, the kids do.
And then you also have the ability to separate the educational hours from the work hours, which opens you up to more funding and being kind of an accredited internship or educational program versus being a work program. And then the payment upon completion, you avoid having kids skip out on the educational side or the parts that don't pay technically. And as we talked to SCA, that was kind of a big thing they mentioned is payment upon completion just encourages attendance and engagement. And then third-party payroll, if there's organizations in the Valley that are doing similar work, they're a really good option for using in terms of getting our program on their payroll because that'll take care of that much more easily. So that's an option.
We talked about this a little bit already, but in terms of placement,
so Liberty Bell has a leadership class where they are actually encouraged to go do work in the community. I think we mentioned this, but that's a great opportunity to have this before they take the leadership class, have this be something that's not required but recommended or somehow works into the leadership class. And also the cross-country ski team could be a really good option for actually getting a lot of the people who are doing the cross-country ski team in this program because they like to be outdoors. And then Jamie talked to Barb Trafton at the Bainbridge Conservation, and she had some interesting ideas about placement.
Yeah, there's they do a spring volunteer application there in Bainbridge where they have a bunch of kids come out and sort of see what the work is like to see if they might even want to be interested in that or if they should apply again for the summer. And it's a good way to also see whether the kids are dedicated or whether they're just there because their parents told them to go. So that's a good sort of like testing out period. And then the one idea we had is a follow-up program after the summer internship, which would be in the fall sometime, and you bring out 2 friends who you think would be good in the program, or just 2 people that you want to volunteer with, and you work on land together, and that's a volunteer unpaid time. And then
in terms of college counseling, Nick Allgood, who we'll actually talk about later because he's in contact with a lot of the people who went to Liberty Bell but are coming back and might be a management option. But he is the college counselor, and I think working with him to kind of encourage kids to try out for this or encourage kids to be interested in this program could be really useful.
all right, so now we're on to the second aspect of our program, which is the work and curriculum.
So the first thing is kind of finding a nice balance between private, which we'll call like conservancy, easement work, and public work, which is different organizations in the valley and also even like the city of Twisp. So kind of combining these to get the right balance of education, community outreach and exposure, and labor that perhaps generates some revenue.
Yep. And we think that one important aspect of this, the work and curriculum, is that you have appropriate labor. You could organize a lot of work around weeding, but that's not going to be an enjoyable experience for the high school students. Stuff like planting, tree caging, fence removal, trail work. These things are much more enjoyable and fulfilling rather than just pulling weeds, as I'm sure some members of the audience know. It's not that fun to pull weeds for 6 hours a day, so you want to really mix it up. And then as part of mixing it up, you have organizational outreach, which is working with a lot of different organizations doing different work in the community. So you're getting, if you don't like an experience at one organization, next week you might be working for something else. So it really is just a variety of experiences. And then finally, bringing in career development speakers. This is something they do at Bainbridge, in the Bainbridge Stewardship Corps. They bring in people who are in the environmental field and just give speeches about how they got there, what they do, and the Barb Trafton from Bainbridge said that this was really enjoyable for the kids too.
So more specifically, we'll just run through this. Easement work is going to be paid. The kids are going to be doing stewardship work for landowners and for the Conservancy. That's going to be paid a certain amount with the Corps leader or whoever's managing the program leading them. I think an important part of this is going to be preferential project assessment, which is kind of a fancy word for if you can submit a proposal for your land to be worked on that does not include weeding, because as we met with a lot of landowners, there's a lot of desire for weeding, but if you can submit a proposal that's less weeding based, that'll hold priority. And then the other kind of paid labor that we envision is Forest Service, some of the hatcheries, and even the city of Twisp as they're building this trail. Those are all projects that this Corps could be involved in and get paid to do, and I think interesting learning experiences.
And on the public side, we have gotten together a lot of different opportunities here. There's a lot of organizations, most importantly the organizations that we've talked to, which have work that we can do in exchange for learning about what they do and then them spending time with the kids. But then, as we mentioned before, career development talks.
And one thing they're doing in the Wood River Valley with their Conservation Corps is actually giving the Conservation Corps some accountability and asking them to do some events, workshops. The Conservancy can do workshops for the Conservation Corps to do, but the actual Corps-led events, and I think that can be really good.
Yeah, and this is important because this is really the part that deals with the community stewardship, which is building connections within the valley and the students between the organizations and the students and the organizations and then also the Methow Conservancy and the organizations. And here's a long list of organizations we have talked to or have heard about that might might be a good partner for us.
Just to highlight a couple places like TwistWorks with Amy Stork, Classrooms in Bloom with Annika Mines, Red Shed, Methow Arts. The Forest Service is doing the Majestic Methow project. The town of Twist is doing the Trail project. These are all projects that are really part of this community and that
Right.
the kids.
And some of these are paid and some of these are not paid, but these are just opportunities out there. All right, on to the management, which is a very important part of the program, a successful program. From talking to guys like Jay Satz at the SCA, he says that this is like one of the most important things is getting a good leader there. Because if there's a good leader, the kids will have a good time, and if there's not a good leader, then you don't have a great program. So the primary leader, we talked to Jay, and he says that an SCA or a WCC partnership is possible. Meaning that they send over one of their very highly trained leaders. And we think that this might make sense, especially during the first couple of years, to sort of get the program going on a successful path. And that they can lead and manage the crew. The roles would be like to lead and manage the crew, build relationships with the organizations, and be like a good role model for the kids.
And then in terms of an assistant, we think there should probably be 2 people working on this project. The TwistWorks has a few AmeriCorps people. There's an option of university placement. I think talking to Julie at the bike shop, she's done work like this with Western Washington University, I think. And also a returning Liberty Bell student could be an awesome person to kind of, who knows the valley and knows some of the kids probably. And then having someone at the Conservancy who in the off season or in some way is coordinating this. Not a huge responsibility, but is some way involved and committed to this project, I think is really important.
This is placement for the main leader and SCA leader would be obviously through the SCA, well trained, and that helps on the insurance side.
Also, if not an SCA leader specifically, the SCA could also offer training to someone. So you could send your leader to an SCA training, which would probably be a lot less expensive than trying to train them yourselves.
Yeah.
A Liberty Bell staff member, these are all to some degree kind of options. So if there was a Liberty Bell staff member who was really excited about the program, that could really be a diamond in the rough in terms of building this program. So not to rule that out. Again, returning Liberty Bell student, AmeriCorps, and Washington universities, there's a lot of people in kind of environmental education, environmental science that would be really interested in getting work or running this program in some way. So I just mentioned this, but if the SCA does do the training, we limit the insurance burden by training your leader. So investing in training is important. And there's other service corps throughout Washington that could also do the training. So we think that's an important investment to make, getting our leader good training.
All right, last but not least, maybe one of the also important aspects is funding and support. How are you going to make it happen? Where's the money going to come from? We did a lot of research into sort of governmental grants, and we found that there's a lot of money for the Salmon Recovery Fund if you're doing stewardship work by the riparian zone. WTA, SCA, and WCC also might be potential resources in terms of the support for the training.
There's various environmental education acts, federally, statewide, and even private. So I guess experimenting with which one of those has the best flexibility and is most feasible for this project. And then Liberty Bell, not financial support, but in terms of helping with the curriculum, helping with leadership, and also helping with transportation, because they actually they have a cross-country ski van that they don't use, and that could be an important part of this project. And then finally, conservators.
That's where we get the paid work.
Money.
The money. Yeah, the kids could do work on their land and get paid. Okay, so the long-term cost is like, the cost really depends on various aspects and decisions that you make along the way. So the management decision is a big one. Obviously, it's a huge cost, and whether you get that from the SCA or whether you have to pay for the training, it's going to depend a lot on how much the final tab is for this program. And then for the accounting, whether you want to outsource the actual paying of the students or put it on Joy's plate, who's the current accountant at Methow Conservancy. So like these, and then career leader lodging, transportation. So these are just things that are going to really affect the total outcome and sort of their. We've talked about some options for them, and the final price tag is going to really depend on what happens in terms of those options.
And then transportation, ideally you have Liberty Bell support, but
yeah,
who
if
knows?
not, then you got to figure something else out. And so this is kind of a Excel spreadsheet analysis of what we were just saying. We can play around with the numbers. We did play around with the numbers a lot. And you can sort of put in the inputs for number of crew, wage that they're getting paid, various other things. And then, you have your total cost down here. And then how much you're bringing in from the paid work. This is the revenue side.
Right
total
here.
revenue up there. And then, so this really depends on like what percentage of the time are you going to do private work, what percentage of the time are you going to do public work, and then what does that work out to be? And so this is under this scenario, what we put together, you're losing it, you're under $2,000, $740.
So I guess what's important is just trying to show that this can generate a certain revenue, which is about $8,000 here, that this is going to cost around 10 grand per year, but again, these are just trying to give you a feel for what.
Right, and then this number would have to be, you need to get grants or whatever to make up for this number.
Yeah. And so if you're still interested, there's probably a management resolution is the most important part. Making a decision of how you're going to go about finding someone to lead this program is one of the first real steps into making it happen. So creating job descriptions, surveying options, testing Liberty Bell, testing Western universities, just to feel like what kind of interest there is. Engaging conservators, perhaps sending out a letter or mailing something, letting them know that this is a possible project. And then starting to talk to these organizations about what they would like to do in terms of outreach and how they think they could best serve this program and how this program could best serve them.
There was a Liberty Bell Carnival in September for jobs,
So
which is past now.
If you'd made that one, great job.
But I'm sure that there'll be another one next year. So that's a good way to sort of get the idea out there and let people know that this is actually happening. Engaging conservators and sort of seeing what their needs are in terms of work on the land and getting a list of people who have work, especially other than weeding. So that would be a huge step in terms of getting the private side of that funding going. And then further contact with these organizations. We've sort of done preliminary stuff, but definitely talking to them further and building sort of what is this relationship going to look like. That would be a huge step going forward.
And finally, this is just kind of resources that are going to be really helpful along the way. In terms of organizations, Bainbridge Island Conservation Corps was really helpful for us and really willing to kind of spread what they've learned in this project.
Barb Crafton.
Way to go, Barb. The FCA, the Washington Conservation Corps, and Liberty Bell High School are going to be important. And then individuals, Nick Allgood, college counselor, are kind of interacting with Liberty Bell students. Julie at the bike shop, who's done kind of projects like this, especially management side with the universities. Steve Seward and Jay Satz, who are involved at SCA, were really helpful to us. Rob Crandall has run a program like this in the early 2000s. Very different, and it lasted 2 years, I believe. Yeah. But he's done kind of the nitty-gritty side of this. And then Mike Wilson, who's really excited about this and at the high school and kind of wants to make this happen. So I think engaging with him is important.
Yep. Good luck.
Back to the opportunity to expand stewardship to the community. Thank you.
Thanks.